everyone, it's Vivian. Welcome to another episode of Sit and Knit with Vivette. Today is Thursday the 2nd of January and I'm bringing you episode 12, which is my December 19 and the whole of 2019 roundup. So first of all, I'd like to say hello and welcome to any new viewers, and hello and welcome back to all my existing viewers. Thank you for coming to spend some time with me. So just a little bit about what this podcast is. My name is Vivian and I live in Essex with my partner Sean and our cat Bonnie. And the idea behind this podcast at the beginning of the year of 2019 was for me just to go through all the hats for the homeless that I was knitting, and just to keep you on track with what I've been doing, and also to keep myself accountable as well. I've really enjoyed doing the podcast, so I've decided to continue to do them throughout 2020 and maybe expand them a little bit. So if you've got any ideas or there's anything you'd like me to show you, please do pop comments below and I will get to them. So I thought first of all I'd do a little roundup on who I am and what I've achieved during 2019. So first of all, on social media, I'm known across social media as Vivette B1. I'm mainly active on Instagram, but I do have a Ravelry page that I keep up to date with my projects, where you can find any notes that I've made on the project that I've been working on. So let's go through the stats for 2019. So I recorded 12 podcasts starting in January, and I currently have 243 subscribers, which I'm really pleased about. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel and continues to support me. I also managed to do 12 vlogmases. Now I had planned on doing all of them, but both Sean and I went down with a flu bug. So there wasn't very much content from about day 13 onwards, because all you would have had was lots of content of me and him coughing and sneezing and feeling basically pretty out for it. So I will hope to do it next year, but I think I need to plan a little bit better so that I have some to incorporate. So as I said earlier, the idea behind this podcast was to record the many hats that I'd knit for the homeless. And in 2019, I managed to knit 16 that have all now been handed to a local charity and will have been distributed throughout December. So I am planning on doing that again, and I've already started on my first one. In terms of knitting for myself, I also managed to knit 8 jumpers or tops. So I did knit some in 2018. I knit about 2, but I managed to knit 6 throughout last year. So that was part of test knitting that I did for some designers, and also just knitting for myself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some photos at the end of this podcast so that you can see all the things almost in like chronological order that I knitted them throughout the year. So stay tuned for that. I also knit 18 pairs of socks in 2019. 3 of them were for Sean. 1 pair I gifted to his brother for a present, and the rest have all been for myself. I do like to have quite a few socks. Sean is more a case of like, I've got plenty of socks, I don't need any more, and then he really appreciates them when he gets them. But I like to have quite a few socks and I rotate them quite often. So 18 pairs of socks. I also knit 4 hats for myself and 2 hats for Sean. 3 pairs of fingerless mittens for myself, and a cowl, which was part of a test knit. No, 2 cowls actually, which were both parts of test knits. So I think I've done pretty well into what I've actually knitted. I also learnt some new techniques that I've enjoyed learning and I've carried on. So the first one being afterthought heels. I used to be a heel flap and gusset person for my socks, but now I found that I prefer to do afterthought heels, and they also fit better than a heel flap does. So that's my preferred option at the moment. I also learnt how to do short rows. My preferred technique for that one is Japanese short rows that I was shown by Marna, who is in Cattenburg, when she came to do a steeking work class with me. She showed me how you put the little stitch marker in the back so that you don't actually have to worry about when you come to picking it up, because it's a little bit looser. Not so much that you'd notice it, but just a little bit better. So that's a new technique that I've learnt. I also learnt steeking, which is, like I say, the workshop that Marna run at Beautiful Things. And I also learnt to knit brioche, but I'm still not a fan of it. But we'll come on to that later. So my plans for 2020 are to knit more hats for the homeless, to knit a colour work jumper for myself, and also some tops, some more garments for myself, because I'm really enjoying knitting jumpers and tops for myself. I enjoy hats and I enjoy socks as always, but I am really enjoying garment knitting, so I'm going to try and replace any of my shop bought jumpers or cardigans with knitted ones. So those are my plans for 2020. What I will do now is just show you what I have finished off in December, and I just need to pause the camera for one moment while I go and get one of my finished objects. So in December I lost quite a lot of knitting time because I'm not feeling very well. Knitting wasn't really something that I was enjoying to do, so I kind of stopped for a little bit, purely because of the fact that I didn't have the headspace for it, where you know, when you're not feeling well, you kind of like make mistakes and things like that. So there were days when not a lot of knitting got done. What I did manage though is I did manage some finished objects, and I will show you those now. So I knit socks, as you know, but I also knit what I call yoga socks or boot socks. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you will know that I have problems with nerve damage in my foot. So I had problems with my disc in my lower spine, and that has led to nerve ending damage in my feet. So just think of walking on hot coals 24/7, and that's the sort of sensation that I have in my feet all the time. Well, if I'm wearing boots and I'm, say, wearing a skirt and I want to wear tights or something like that, if I have a full sock on top of that, it really irritates my foot. It just makes them burn really, really hot. So I knit what I call yoga socks. So I take the heel out and I take the toe out, basically. And these are great to wear, that I can wear them with boots to keep me a little bit warmer, but without having the irritation that it causes on my toes and my heels. So I knit 2 pairs in December to go to the things. This is just this yarn is yarn that I had, one of the first skeins that I bought back in about 2015. I don't remember who I bought it from. I did knit it into a hitchhiker that I never wore, because I find the hitchhiker's a little bit too short for me. I like a really long scarf. So I pulled it back. I used some of it in a cowl that I knit last year, and I knit the rest of it into these boot socks. I also knit a second pair, and this is yarn by The Wall Kitchen in the Nebula colour. Again, I bought it for another project years ago, never done anything with it, but this is lovely yarn. I really enjoyed knitting this one. It was absolutely fantastic to knit. So that was 2 pairs of boot socks, as I call them, that I knit in December. I also finished my Christmas socks and Sean's Christmas socks. Unfortunately, I can't show you them here because they have been worn and they are now in the washing pile, but I will put some pictures in at the end for you to see them. My only other finished object was a hat that I knit, and I'll insert a picture of me wearing it here, that I cast on. This was my Christmas Eve cast on. I cast it on Christmas Eve and I cast it off on the 28th. This is the flaneur hat by Becky Sorensen, who is Soprano Knits on Ravelry. And I knit it out of the Rosario 4 Cappuccino yarn, which I got from Eleanor at Knit Nottingham. Now the Rosario yarn is an Aran weight yarn. It's 75% virgin wool and 25% of a milk protein. They call it a polyamide, but it's actually made from milk protein. So if you Google it, that's what it tells you. So the virgin wool is, I had to look up what virgin wool meant as opposed to any other wool. And it actually means wool that has come straight off a lamb. It's their first shearing. So it is, in the true sense of it, virgin, because it is the first time that they've been sheared. This is so soft. This is why I'm touching it. I'm just in love with it. It's really, really lovely. It's a beautiful, like, plum aubergine colour. It doesn't have a colour name on the ball band. It's just called number 13. Now, as far as I'm aware, the only stockist I've managed to find is Eleanor of Knit Nottingham. So I ordered it online from her because obviously she's not local to me. And she does have a good range in. I've also got the chocolate brown version, which I'm going to use to knit a hat very similar. Probably the same hat for Sean, although he said he has enough at the moment. But I know that others, like Hannah, has used it to knit a couple of hats, and she's knit her husband a hat in it, and it's got a full colour range. So if you want any, I will put a link to it down below. So that was my other finished object for December. So as you can see, I only finished 3. I did finish one more hat, which went into the bag that was distributed for the Hats of the Homeless. So again, unfortunately, I don't have that to show you. But I do have some whips on the go, so I will quickly go through those with you. So my first whip is my Cozy Memories blanket. Now, I've done quite a bit on this. I was very fortunate enough to do a mini yarn swap with 3 friends of mine, Laura, Catherine and Joe, that I met at the Babbles Retreat in October 18. Yes, October 18. And we all agreed to do a mini swap. So I got 24 minis from them. And I can show you them because I've put them all into my Cozy Memories blanket. Now, see down here, this is the last mini that I had. And so from here onwards, all the way along that row. So there's blues and browns. So that row there and the row above. Up to here is part of the mini swap, and this is just, I'm now back on my own yarns just to finish it off. So I had 24 skeins, 24 mini 5 gram skeins that I've managed to put in all of them, and this is now getting, as you can see, quite large. So it's going to get to the stage where I'm going to have to photograph it on the floor and insert photographs because it's going to be too large to hold up. So that was my Cozy Memories blanket, and I was very good. I did enjoy knitting a square a day, and that sometimes that was the only thing that I could manage to knit on that daily basis because I felt so rough. So the other things that I have been working on is I have cast on my next hat for the homeless. So this is some yarn, just, I don't know, have a ball band. This was gifted to me at our Friday morning craft club at Beautiful Things. One of the ladies, Diane, that goes to the club, she brought in a bag of some scrap and leftover yarns for those of us that do knit charity knits, and said to us, help yourselves and take what you want. So I've got this blue ball, and I also got a cream ball that I will probably alternate with another one to make a striped hat or something. So I'm just doing a plain 2x2 rib, working on this one. So this is the first of the 2020 hats for the homeless. My other whips at the moment, I have 2 socks. Oh, I have another finished object before I interrupt that. Now technically I didn't knit this. My friend Claire, and for those of you that watch the Beautiful Things channel, will know that she occasionally knits, and she recently did a podcast where she talked about her whips. And in amongst the whips were these socks that she's been knitting for her daughter, and she knit them using a mini advent that she'd bought a couple of years ago. So she's individually knitted in each thing, and I will show you because you can see there's all the ends, Claire. But she did say that all they needed was the afterthought heels. So she brought them into BTHQ one day, and I took them off of her, and I've put in the afterthought heels for them. So what I managed to do was, as you can see, that one, it was a black and then a silvery type stripe that was due to go next. So I managed to find the black mini, and on one heel rather, I've put the black mini in, and on the other heel I've put the silver mini in because there wasn't enough of the black to do both of them. So she has kind of sort of got heels that link to the sock in the fact that one will be one colour and one will be the colour below or above it. So that's quite nice. Now I have said to Claire I am not weaving in all the ends. So I'm hoping that the weaving in fairy, that may be Claire's mum or it may even be Claire, does this. Otherwise poor little Miss Mac will have grown out of these socks before she gets them. But they are something that I did finish for Claire over the Christmas period. So they will be going back to Beautiful Things and waiting for the ends to be weaved in, and then her daughter can get her socks. So my other works in progress that I have at the moment are a combination of socks, a jumper and a shawl. And I'll start off with the socks first of all. So those of you that remember, I started these back in October, and these are what I call my car knitting socks. So these just sit in the car, and when I need to knit anything and I'm waiting for something or I'm early for an appointment or something, I just sit and knit on these. So I've almost, at the end of the first socks, I've just got to put the cuffs in, and then I will put them to one side, knit the second one, and then I'll put the heels in. What I've decided to do with socks this year is I'm going to knit lots of tubes of socks with toes in, but not put the heels in. And then, depending on whether I'm going to keep them for myself or I'm going to gift them, I will put the heels in then, depending on the size of the foot. So that's my first whip that I'm working on. My second whip that I'm working on, and this is in one of my Christmas bags that Sean bought me. He actually bought me a lovely gift set of Sanctuary Spa, which is like body lotions and stuff like that. But I thought it's ideal to put house socks in because I can actually see through it, which is really nice, so I can see what I've got in here. And in this one, I am, again, knitting a pair of socks. And the yarn that I'm using, this is Mallard, which is West Yorkshire Spinners, on their standard sock base. I can't think what they call it. I haven't got the ball band. And this is how it knits up. I'm really enjoying how it knits up. So it's just a stripe. So these I'm going to knit up, and they will be either socks for Sean or socks for his brother. So they're roughly the same size foot. So I know that I just need to knit 14 inches of tube, including the cuff, put the toes in, and then just put the heel placement in when they want them. They both like their socks slightly longer in the leg. So that's why I'm doing that. So that's a nice, easy evening knitting. And I'm really loving that mallard colour. I might have to get another ball of that and do a pair for myself as well. Because I really, really like that colour. I just love how it's striping up beautifully. I'm really pleased with that. So my other whips are actually large whips, as opposed to small projects. So my first one, which is living in my, this is a Christmas present from Claire, who made me this beautiful project bag. It's called the Emmeline Retreat bag, and what I love about it is when you open it up, she says I'm careful unzipping it, it becomes a box basically that you can hold everything in. So in here I'm knitting the Elysian shawl by Mina Phillip, who is Knitting Expat. So let me get to the picture. So this is the shawl here. That's a picture of somebody wearing it there, not me, another lady. What I love about the shawl is it's written for DK, but it's written as a percentage shawl. So instead of saying knit 120 stitches, it will say knit colour A until you've reached X% of your yarn, then incorporate colour B. When you've knit X% of colour A and colour B, remove colour A, bring in colour C. So you can use, I'm doing a fingering weight yarn, so because it's done on that percentage basis, it doesn't matter what weight of yarn you're using, you can still produce a shawl out of it. It will just be a slightly different size. Excuse me. Told you we'd all been down with a cold. So it would just be a slightly different size to the actual stitch count for a DK. So I have cast it on. I cast it on New Year's Eve. It's my New Year's Eve cast on. And as you can see, this is what I've done so far. So this is a colour A. Oh, excuse me. So that's it there. Scarter stitch, first part. And then you bring in what looks like a brioche, but it's actually 2-colour fisherman's rib. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm going to show you the colour that I'm going to bring in to do the 2-colour fisherman's rib is this one here, which is a grey with specks in. So this colour here is by Stranded Dye Works, and it's called Charred Plum on her standard sock base. This one here, which you can see, is Alter Ego from Truly Hooked, and again it's on her standard sock base. And my final colour, which will be colour C that will go at the bottom, is this really, I don't know if it's going to show, it's a really neon bright pink. Now this again is by Stranded Dye Works, but it was a custom dye for me back in 2016 for a project that I had done then, and I never got round to doing it. And I just thought these three, let me hold up the ball, that might be easier. These three are going to go really well together. So that is going to be colour A, colour B, and then colour C. And I'm really looking forward to that. So, like I say, it's a really lovely pattern to work on. And can I just point out that I have also coordinated my needle holder, which is, this is one of Barbara's pouches. Unfortunately, she no longer sells these. But it just literally matches in. I have to have everything coordinated. So that is my current whip at the moment, and that's the one that I'm currently working on in the evenings, because it is just very easy to sit and knit. It's quite being garter stitch as well. It's just your increases when you need to do them, and it's ideal for that. So that is my first whip of 2020. Like I say, I started it. I will link to the pattern. It is a paid for pattern, but as with all of Mina's patterns, she also does a discount of pay what you can type thing, and it explains it in there so you can get 20% off, etc. Based on what you can afford, which is a really lovely way of doing things. And like I say, that's living in my Evelyn Retreat project bag. My second whip is, no, hang on, my second biggest whip, yes, is a jumper that I started. Now I'm may have spoken about this on Vlogmas because I started at the beginning of December, then I had to flog it all back because I'd done the calculations incorrectly. So this is currently living in my bag that I made at one of Claire's classes, which is talk to the hand I'm knitting, because it's got so big now it can only live in that. It was living in my retreat bag. And what I'm doing is I'm doing a So Faded, and the yarn that I'm using is all by Truly Hooked. So I shall start you off at the top. So this is how far I've got with it. I'm just about to fade in the 4th colour. So this is it from the top and then down. So the top colour, which is this really neutral with pops of turquoise and pink and purple, is called Coven. Then it fades into this one here, which has got the neon yellows, greys and orange in, which is called Trance. And then it fades into this one here at the bottom, which is a slightly more saturated grey than the Trance, with again pops of orange and pinks, and you can see it's got like pink running all the way through it. And that one is called Wuthering Heights. And again, these are all on Verity's standard sock base. Now I've got the 4th colour to fade in, but I haven't actually got that at the moment. I've ordered it as part of Verity's sale that she had between Christmas and New Year, and it's called Shadow, and it's a darker grey with more of the like speckles and the white and that, so it'll all fade in nicely. So that's going to be my first jumper off of my needles for 2020. I'm just waiting for that to arrive and then I can get on with that. So those are everything that I'm knitting at the moment. So I must admit I'm spending most of my time either knitting on my shawl or alternating between the 2 socks, because like I say, I'm still at that point of I don't want to do too much knitting, so I'm still feeling not 100%. But I do have plans for my next cast on, so as I said, my next cast on, once I finish that jumper, I have planned at the moment, and I did say that I wanted to do a colourwork jumper. So this is one that I'm going to do. It's called the Arboreal, if you can see that there, and it's by Jennifer Steingas. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. It is a colourwork pattern, and I know Barbara of Knitting I Love has done it, I believe, and I've seen her one and I really liked it. But it says it's very simple because it's only one colour difference. So I've got my yarn and I've got some options, so I'd appreciate any comments below on which options you should go through. So the main colour is going to be this grey. So this is Drops Charisma. It's just a grey. Now for the colourwork pattern at the top, I can't decide whether to go with this Drops Lima, which is like a deep purple burgundy colour, whether to go with this one, which is more of a heather colour because it's called heather, or to go with this colour. These all Drops Lima, whether to go with this colour, which they call Ice Blue. So these are my 4 options, and I cannot decide. I can't decide which one is going to have the best impact against the grey. I'm leaning towards those 2, first of all. And then I think, well, actually, no, that is actually quite a good contrast. But then also that one is quite a good contrast. So I really can't decide which one to knit. What I think I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do some swatches of all of the colours, like the grey with the lime and the grey with the ice blue and the grey with the purple, to see what one I like most of all. But at the moment, as I can see, I'm really torn. Definitely going to have to be the grey for the main colour, because I have plenty of water. I have the right quantity of yarn for that, and the other ones I've only got three skeins or so, or 3 50-gram balls, so they're definitely enough for the colour work, but enough for the jumper. I do, however, have enough of what would be for the main colour in a blue that I knit my potluck pullover in 2019 of, which I'll show you pictures at the end, and also a cream. So I could, if I do one in grey and really like it, I could do the other with the cream, for example, and then use one of the colours as the thing. But at the moment I really can't decide which one to do, so I think it's going to have to be squash. So if anyone has any ideas or any suggestions, please drop a comment below, because I could really do some help on working out which colours to do. So those are that's my next project once I've finished everything that's on my needle, and that's all that I have plans for at the moment, knitting wise. Now I am going to a retreat knitting retreat at the end of February, hosted by the lovely Julie and Ellie of Suffolk Socks and Craft House Magics, along with a lady called Emma, I believe, of Siren Yarns. And I'm really looking forward to that, so I want some projects to take for that one. And it might be that I take one of my jumpers, because Ipswich isn't too far from me, so it's not as though I've got to travel many distances with a big project. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And I must admit that I have decided for 2020 that I'm not going to buy any yarn, with a couple of exceptions. I went through my stash recently, and I was just like, oh, I'd forgotten I got this. Oh, I'd forgotten I got that. Oh, didn't even know I had that. Oh, I've got that. And I just thought I now have too much of both commercial yarn and hand-dyed yarns. So I did make 2 purchases during the Christmas sales. One was the extra skein from Verity to finish it off that jumper, and the other one is a 3 skeins from Hannah of Chromatic Yarns in her Necromancer Fade kit. And with that I'm going to do a drift top, and I'll put a link to that pattern down in Ravelry down below. And that's all I'm going to use. That's the only yarn I'm going to buy this year, except when I go to the retreat in February. If there's yarn for sale there, I will buy a couple of skeins as a memory of what I purchased at the retreat. So I've got no plans to go to any of the knitting festivals this year. The only exception, again, to yarn buying is Sean and I are going for a holiday up in the Scottish Islands and Hebrides. So we're doing a tour around that later on in the year. And if there's a yarn shop there, which I'm sure there will be, it is the Scottish Islands, I will purchase some yarn from there purely because it's something that we've visited, so it's like memories. And I'll knit something for him and something for me from something that I purchased whilst we was on holiday. But other than that, I have no plans to go to any yarn shows or, Fibre East or any of those, because I know I'm going to be tempted to buy yarn, and I really must work through my stash because it's starting to take over my craft room. So those, you can all hold me accountable to that one. So my only exceptions are the ones that I've already ordered, ones from the retreat that I go to in February, and also from our holiday later on in the year. That's all the yarn that I'm buying. I'm not buying any more. I must work through my stash, and if I want to knit anything and I haven't got it in my stash, then I'm not knitting it. So you can all shout at me if I change that one, but hopefully I won't. So that's all that I have to say to you today. I hope you've all had a really lovely Christmas, and I wish you all the best for 2020. And I look forward to catching up with you throughout the year with more podcasts. I am also planning on doing a Q&A podcast. So what I will do for that one is I will post on Instagram. I think my camera cut out, just as I was explaining. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for continuing to follow me and watch me. I hope you all had good Christmases, and I wish you all the best for 2020, and I shall catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye bye.